So, today on the Chalk and Gibbs podcast, we're talking about homeowner renewals. It's time for my renewal. I got this letter in the mail, or I got this email with all these questions to fill out. And now what? What do I do? So, when you get a letter in the mail that says your homeowner insurance has renewed or is up for renewal, I don't know about other companies, but Chalk and Gibbs will send an email with a list of questions to answer just to make sure nothing has changed about your coverage. And what would you say is one of the top things that you need to tell your agent about your home if your coverage is up for renewal? So I get a letter in the mail. Now what do I do?
Well, when your policy comes up for renewal, it's just a good time to review the coverage that you have. And if you've made any changes to the house in the past year that you hadn't discussed with your agent already, at renewal is the time to do it.
So say I got a new roof. Does my agent need to know I got a new roof?
It's good that the agent would know that you have a new roof. A lot of insurance companies these days have restrictions on the age of your roof.
How old do they like to cut that off? Like if my roof is 30 years old, do they want to write my wind coverage if my roof is 30 years old, or my homeowner coverage?
If your roof is a standard fiberglass asphalt composition shingle, most insurance companies want those type of roofs to be less than 20 years old. So if you've got a 30-year-old roof, a shingled roof, then yes, it's time. That roof doesn't owe you anything. It's time to get a new roof. Now, other materials like metal have a little bit, they last longer.
More resilient.
More resilient. And I believe the guideline for most metal roofs these days is like 35 years.
And one thing about just a shingle roof, if you have an older roof and you do get a new roof and you're within that 20-year bracket now, you can get different coverage with maybe a carrier that might be less expensive. So an older roof, we would probably write it with the North Carolina Joint Underwriting Association because of its age.
True.
And if you're getting a new roof, you might get a better rate.
Correct.
So definitely an important thing to tell your agent.
Other things are just putting a new roof on your house doesn't necessarily change the amount of coverage that you might need, because you had a roof, you got another roof, so
what if you went from a shingle to a metal roof?
Well, then that would be an improvement, and a metal roof is going to be more expensive than a shingled roof, so you should increase your coverage to take in the fact that you have a more expensive house to rebuild, right, because you have a metal roof. And if you've added anything to the house, if you've added more living area, or if you've replaced flooring with a more expensive type of flooring, say you had carpet and you decided to install hardwood, and hardwood would be more expensive to replace than carpet, so an increase in coverage would probably be warranted for that change. You remodeled your kitchen, you added another room to the house, you enclosed a porch. All those things could result in the replacement cost of your house, the cost to rebuild the house in the event of a total loss, increasing. So that's why you would need to just increase your baseline coverage amount.
Right. That makes sense. So what if I'm renewing my coverage and I have a home at the beach and I was just using it as, my beach house, and it was just used for my family. But now I've decided to make a little extra cash and rent it out to others for about 12 weeks in the summer. Would that be something important to tell my agent?
It would. The way the house is occupied determines the type of policy that you should be carrying for the house. It used to be that if a house was rented at all, it wasn't eligible for homeowner coverage, and we had to use another form of policy that's referred to as dwelling insurance. But these days, a lot of insurance carriers have come up with homeowner products that are available for second homes that are rented at least part of the year to other people. But you just have to keep your agent informed as to how you're using the property so that the agent can be sure that the insurance carrier that they have you with is okay with the way you're using the house.
Right.
And it can lead to the denial of a claim if you say, you had the coverage written as if it was you're just a second residence that you never rented to others, and then you decided, well, I'm not going to go to the property this year. I'm going to rent it to somebody else for the whole year. And usually homeowner insurance requires that the owner occupy the premises at least some time during the policy period.
Right.
And if that changes, then it can impact the coverage.
Correct. So if I decide to rent my beach house out for, the summer, and I want to keep it simple and rent it out on Airbnb, is that an important thing to tell my agent at renewal? And are insurance carriers okay with using services like Airbnb or VRBO?
You just need to keep the company informed of how the house is being used. They did have some restrictions for what they called home sharing host activities, which were designed for services like Airbnb and VRBO, where the rental of the home is basically done online, and there's not usually a professional property manager involved. It's done by the individual homeowner. And they were issuing a endorsement for homeowner policies that restricted coverage in those situations. But then they had another endorsement where you could buy back some of that coverage if you have the endorsement added to your policy. But there again, it's just important for the consumer to keep their agent informed of any changes they have so that the agent can be sure that they have the right form of coverage.
That's right. Very important. So how about, if I get a dog and the dog is a lab and German Shepherd mix? Is that something that's important to tell my agent?
Yes, insurance companies want to keep track of pets that you may own, and that's usually a standard question on a homeowner insurance application because homeowner insurance does include personal liability coverage,
right?
Which is a great thing to have. And, insurance companies don't have problems with most dog breeds. They only have problems with dog breeds that have a history of aggressive behavior or just by nature that's how they are.
And some of those breeds, and we're not biased towards any dog breed, but some of those breeds would be pit bulls or boxers or German shepherds,
Doberman Pinscher,
Dobermans,
Rottweilers, all the traditional
any
guard
dog,
dogs.
Yeah, any dog that has any kind of history of aggression. And usually on the application, if you do have a dog that's under one of those categories, they might ask if they have any bite history. So it's not always a complete exclusion. They might just exclude liability coverage for any claim due to the dog.
Some carriers have the ability to exclude a certain exposure, like a dog. Mm-hmm. Other carriers don't. So the position of those carriers would be if you have that type of dog that is on their prohibited breed list, then they're not going to accept your coverage. They're not going to provide coverage for you.
Right.
And it's they even some companies can be even when it's a mixed breed. If part of the breed is one of those dogs that they've put on their list of unacceptable, then they won't write your coverage either.
Right.
And it's again, it's all through experience. Insurance companies have paid lots of money out for dog liability claims, and they just through experience have discovered if we don't do something about this, we can't stay in business.
Right.
So
yeah.
they start, making those restrictions. And we do live in a society where people will take litigation when they've been injured, and that can escalate a smaller claim into a larger one.
And one real life example that I was telling you about earlier is there was a 22-year-old college student in, I think it was Texas, and she was hired to dog sit. She'd met the dogs prior to the job, but she goes to open the door to the home that she was dog sitting for, and it was a German Shepherd mix and a Pit Bull mix, and they attacked her and, mutilated her almost to death. And the dog owners are now being, sued, and the dogs are unfortunately, sadly going to be euthanized. But if those homeowners did not have, the right coverage, then their insurance company is not going to help them pay for that claim.
If the homeowners had not informed their
Right.
insurance carrier that they had those dogs that could potentially be aggressive, the insurance carrier could say that they obtained the coverage under false pretenses and deny any coverage for that event at all.
Right. And then they'll be out of pocket thousands, if not millions of dollars. So
True.
just something to think about. How about if my homeowner policy is up for renewal in January, but this Christmas my kid got a trampoline? Is that something that I need to tell my agent?
Yes, it would be, and a consumer may not understand it, but a trampoline can pose additional liability exposure just because you can get injured fairly easily on a trampoline, and so some carriers won't accept applications for coverage when there is a trampoline on the premises.
Right.
And other carriers have allowed it when the trampoline has a safety net around it to prevent people from falling off the trampoline when they're playing on it. But this is all true. There's lots of another hazard has been skateboard ramps. Some people like to build homemade ramps in their driveway for skateboarding, and that's another exposure.
That's another no-no?
No.
Can't have that. All right. Well, all of that is, really important. So if you have any changes, anything that you think could be a big liability, or any changes to your home, or any new pets, anything that you answered on the initial insurance application that has changed, it's always a good idea to tell your agent. And I don't know about other agencies, but Chalk & Gibbs sends a renewal email with these kinds of questions in it. And instead of just deleting it or, thinking that it's not relevant, it's a good idea to read through those questions and just make sure that there's, nothing important that has changed in your home, so you can have the correct kind of coverage. Don't you think?
Yep. Exactly.
So that's all for homeowner renewals today, and join us for episode 3.